welcome to Inside Magazine. The interview that we bring you in this episode is an exclusive moment, a unique encounter with Pope Francis, who rarely opens up to the media in such a way. In this one-on-one interview, the pontiff spoke with an open heart to our reporter Henrique Cymerman, who played a critical role in his prayer for peace with Israeli President Shimon Peres and Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas at the Vatican. The Pope speaks of his recent visit to the Holy Land and his rejection of religious fundamentalism and anti-Semitism. He also announced his intention to open the Vatican's archives regarding the role of the Church during the Holocaust. This is the first time that any Pope had been interviewed on camera in the Vatican. Well, here's my meeting with the Pope, an exclusive interview by Henrique Cymerman for I-24 News.
Papa Francisco, es un honor estar aquí con usted.
Pope Francis, it's an honor to be here with you, again after a year. So many things you did this year, and specifically the event, this prayer of the three great religions, as we talked about a while ago, is unique in history. I think in the Middle East and in the world in general. How do you feel about it? And it was not easy to organize, right?
I agree with what you said. You know, it was not easy because you had to deal with all of it, no? And you had much to do with what was achieved, and I thank you openly. I felt that we were all led to something that we thought about and which step by step took shape, and which was not a political event at all. I felt from the start that it was a religious event. To open a window, a door, to a dimension and say, that prayer is also a political act, in capital letters. Only pray. Someone said, yes, but prayer alone does not accomplish anything. Without prayer, even less is done.
Papa Francisco,
Pope Francis, Israel, Palestine. Jordan was the first destination that you chose to visit as a pope. How was the trip?
The trip was good. Here the Italians said it was overwhelming. It's true, it was rough. Hard because of the activities. It was one thing after another. A mass the next morning after this, another, one after another. All nicely organized, no? The tour was good, made me feel, well, full of new things. But I would say only to myself, what happens to me is that when I become very emotional, I close myself and things simmer slowly, no? And then it comes out. So that at the end, religious feeling starts to bloom a little. Feelings which have accumulated. I try not to be too emotional. I don't know. Modesty, machismo, I don't know why.
And there, in that land, as we know, there's still violence, including violence in the name of God, and that's something you deeply condemn.
Fundamentalism today. The three religions have fundamentalist groups. Small relative to the rest. The greeting of the fundamentalist is, see where I can hit you? At least ideologically, not a greeting that brings closer. Fundamentalism defends itself, as I said. We also have Christian fundamentalist groups.
You explained your relationship to Judaism and you discussed the problem of anti-Semitism. These last few days, a survey on anti-Semitism in Europe has been published. Many demonstrations, a worrying increase. How do you see this?
You're asking me two questions. Why do I say that within each Christian is a Jew? Maybe the more correct expression is, you cannot live as a Christian, you cannot be a true Christian, without recognizing your Jewish roots. I pray the divine office every day, with the Psalms of David, the 150 Psalms we pray in a week. That is, my prayer is Jewish. I have the Eucharist that is Christian. That's the first question. One has to recognize that. The second is anti-Semitism. Well, the interpretations that justify anti-Semitism are known to you better than to me. The black legend, the stateless Jew, the tramp, the people who committed deicide, was a very difficult thing to which the Second Vatican Council put a stop. We even have people questioning the Holocaust. Today this is crazy, but it happens. How to explain this happens today?
In fact, when you were in the Holocaust Museum of Yad Vashem in Jerusalem, you kissed the hands of 6 Holocaust survivors and you talked to them. And I read in your book of the idea of perhaps opening the archives of the Vatican of the period of the Shoah, the Holocaust. Do you still continue to pursue this project, this idea?
The Vatican files are at the service of history. I see no difficulty in opening the archives and complying with the agreements. It will be a contribution to history, and it will bring a lot of light. I am concerned about one thing in this, and here I want to be very frank. The figure of Pius XII. Since the writing of the theatrical play, The Deputy, Bahochuch, poor Pius XII, they threw everything at him. Not that he had not made mistakes. He committed some, I committed many. But somehow, before that, he was seen as the great defender of Jews because he hid Jews in many Roman convents and in other cities in Italy. Jews and other persecuted people. There were a lot of Jewish and other persecuted people in Castel Gandolfo. In the bed of the Pope in Castel Gandolfo, 42 babies were born to refugees there. Things that are not known. When Pius XII died, Golda Meir sent a very important letter. And the Roman Jewish families were very grateful, maybe idealizing him. And another thing, not that I want to annoy anybody, but sometimes I get a kind of existential rash when I see everyone attacking the church, attacking Pius XII, everybody. I mean the commentators. And the powers? You know that the great powers were well aware of the railway network that carried Jews to the concentration camps. They had pictures. They did not bomb them. And that remains an open question.
I remember a year ago we were talking about this, and I saw you were very concerned about the persecutions against Christians in some countries. In my region, like in Syria, in Iraq, what can you do to end that?
The persecuted Christians is something that touches me as a pastor. We must have a dialogue, be conscious about the situation. What I would like to clarify is that I am convinced that today's persecution is harder than at the beginning of the church. Today there are more Christian martyrs than at that time. It is not a fantasy, I have the numbers.
Usted aún firma cartas a veces a amigos o a conocidos como Padre Jorge.
When we were here a year ago, you invited us to have lunch and said, "I have to give you a sandwich." And you said, "Those are priest habits." Do you feel like a priest, or do you see your position as the head of the Catholic Church?
Máximo jefe supremo de la Iglesia Católica.
And I give you just a sandwich?
Yes, and we had a very good lunch at your table.
For me, the priest's habits are the closest way to express my vocation, to serve the people, to turn off the lights, not to spend so much money. These are the priest's habits. Being the Pope allows me to do things seriously. I have many advisors here in the Secretariat of the Vatican State. They are serious people, well prepared. They arrange everything for me so I can do my task. I cannot act like a priest and Pope at the same time. That's an immature game. That attitude comes from inside. It appears in different manners. But you must fulfill your duties. When a dignitary comes, we must receive him with dignity and the protocol he deserves. Well, you know me, I have some issues with the protocol, but it has to be respected. Do you know the difference between a terrorist and protocol? You can bargain with a terrorist.
I understand you have a room in a retirement home in Buenos Aires. You asked them to keep you a place over there.
It is a retirement home for elderly priests, and I chose a room and wanted to come live here, and from here work as a priest, helping the parish. That was my future. And regarding the resignation, I think Pope Benedict made a large gesture, opened a door. Pope Benedict did not create an exception by this, but actually created a new institution of eventual honorably retired popes. 70 years ago, there were no honorably retired bishops, and today how many are there? Why? As we live longer, we reach an age where we can no longer go on with things. I'll do the same that Benedictus did. I shall ask the Lord to enlighten me when the time comes and tell me what I have to do, and he shall surely tell me.
Many years from now, in the coming days during the World Cup, the world will be very busy with this. Will you watch the games? Why ask you whom you will support? I'm not going to ask. It's clear, of course.
The Brazilians asked me to be neutral, and I've kept my word. Because Argentina and Brazil have always been antagonistic.
Many thanks.
Thank you for everything, for what you did, for yesterday, and may God bless you.
Thank you very much, Pope Francis. It was an honor.
We're now joined in the studio by Henrique Cymerman. Henrique, welcome back.
Thank you very much, David.
So you brought this a very unique, special moment here in the Vatican, the first time ever an extended on-camera interview in the Vatican that you got here. Tell us, how did you get to that point with the Pope?
Well, it was 1 year, I think. Last year, a year ago exactly, I was there with Rabbi Abraham Skorka, one of his best friends. And I had the chance of eating lunch with the Pope and speaking with the Pope and then having a long conversation, more than 1 hour, not on record at that moment. But then he told me, what can I do for Israel? And I said, come. And he said, do you help me? I said, yes, why not? And that's what happened. Suddenly I was helping him to organize the visit to Israel, to Bethlehem, to Amman. And he said then he had an idea to do a prayer for peace. He thought it was a very important thing. And I found myself, trying to mediate between Israelis and Palestinians. I was supposed to be in the papal flight, the first Jew ever in a papal flight. He invited me, but then he called me and he said, Henrique, hello, I'm Pope Francis. And I wanted to tell him, hello, I'm Napoleon.
Yes, you thought this was a joke, perhaps,
exactly,
I imagine.
But it wasn't. And he asked for my help to mediate, and finally we did it. And then he was so happy, because this prayer for him was an icon for the future. It's something he said that we cannot evaluate now, but for the future, maybe it will be something very important. And I believe this Pope wants to surprise us more.
Speaking of the future here, he speaks of a lot of change now, but how empowered do you think he really is to make this change happen?
Well, I think he's today the most dominant and charismatic leader in the world. Now, his influence is not only with 2 billion Christians, it's, I think, all over the world. You can find he's charismatic, he knows what he wants, he doesn't take no for an answer, and he really thinks out of the box.
Truly a man on a mission here.
Absolutely, and he knows, and that's one of the scoops he gives us, he knows he has a limited time to do it, to do this change in the world and in the Middle East, and in the relation with the Jewish people.
Well, fantastic. Henrique Cymerman, thank you so much for bringing us the story.
Thank you, David. It's a pleasure.
And thank you to our viewers for being with us. We'll see you again next week at the same time.